So could you start by introducing yourselves, please?
Yeah, of course. I'm Jo Hughes and I'm the Group Director of EdTech at Berkhamsted. So I work across our sort of 6 schools, helping set up EdTech platforms, supporting teaching and learning, as well as software that runs behind the scenes for things like filtering and monitoring.
Thanks, yeah. So my name's Ronan. I'm the Head of Digital Learning for the Prep Schools, Berkhamsted Schools Group. And similar to Joe, it's driving innovation, training teachers, and lots of teaching as well.
Brilliant, yeah, and I like that I had the word EdTech thrown in there as well, so nice pedagogy focus.
Absolutely, which is what it should be.
Absolutely, brilliant. So the thing we're going to talk about today is kind of smartphone policies, and there's been a lot of recent policy updates for UK schools. Could you first of all just share like a bit of an overview of what some of the changes are?
Yeah, do you want to do that one?
Surely, yeah. So I suppose there's a real initiative and momentum around this. If you kind of look back to last year in February, the DfE published guidance really calling for a ban on mobile phone usage in schools.
Change, wasn't it, to come in?
That was huge, not just kind of during the day, but like break times, lunch times. And then Ofcom released research in April, and they found that 24% of 5 to 7-year-olds have their own phones.
Wow.
And also the kind of percentage usage of social media has gone up to 38% in that age band, 5 to 7, which is huge. So with that kind of backdrop, we found that there's a real kind of drive and momentum for collective action around the usage of phones. Joe, do you want to speak a little bit about our own school? And
yeah, that would be really interesting what you guys are doing in your school.
Yeah, so in our school, we are part of the smartphone free childhood movement. We've actually had Yonder pouches, which are a way of locking phones for the whole school day. We're in our 2nd year of that, so we've been doing that for sort of before this momentum's kind of really hit the press. Which means that our students are not on their devices at all, not just during lessons, but also the break time, lunchtime, and therefore fostering more of dialogue and talking to each other and actually having a childhood at school, which is so important. And we're also telling our parents or saying with our parents that we would like them to not really bring smartphones to school in the younger years, and actually encouraging not using smartphones in our younger years at all. And from year 7, so year 7 in September 2025, we will not be allowing students to bring smartphones onto site at all. So not even locking the Yonder pouch is just not allowed on school site.
Interesting. How are you finding the Yonder pouches? How is that working for you?
They're working really well. It's kind of just an expectation now. There is, the students know 8:25, put them away, they go in the pouch and they're locked away for the day, and then at 4:20 they can unlock them. So
that's good as well. At least it's a way to keep them safe as well, because obviously if they are bringing the devices in, you need a good way to store those, keep those.
Yeah, so it's really well embedded.
Yeah, so what are your thoughts then on the recent policy updates and things? What are the benefits, and then what are the challenges for schools?
yeah, so I suppose in terms of the benefits, I mean, as a parent, I've witnessed firsthand how addictive social media and the algorithms are, and the fact that the algorithms get it wrong and kind of serve up content that they're not necessarily looking at and wanting to see.
And some media firms have said they're not going to fact check things anymore either. That was obviously a quite worrying announcement as well. So
Absolutely, with the amount of AI content being kind of generated. So I think as a parent, I've witnessed that in my own house and the challenges around that. But obviously, professionally in work as well, we can see that children do love technology, but we want to be pro-tech, but also pro-boundaries. And I think it's about trying to address the balance. So I think the benefits really are about letting children be children again and allowing them access to technology that helps them improve their lives and learn, but not necessarily get kind of drawn into all the negatives and the rabbit hole of kind of what's out there. Did you want to add anything to that, Joe?
Thank you. Yeah, I think as well, sort of like you said, it's about that education piece as well. So working with students and with parents about the pros and the cons, so not villainising tech because it can be really good. And even smartphones, they allow connectivity, they allow productivity if used in the right way. And if we start saying, right, they're not allowed it until this age, say 16 or 18, what then happens at 16 or 18? So actually we need to be kind of part of that partnership with students and parents about education around the safe use and effective use of all of these things.
Especially if they are still going to use them outside of school, so it makes sense to educate them on how to use them safely rather than just say we're not going to use them at all.
Absolutely, yeah.
Brilliant. And what about, you talked a little bit about some research earlier, Ronan. Did you have any more kind of recent research that you want us to share?
Yeah, so I suppose there's a real global perspective to this. So, for example, in the US, there's a social psychologist, Jonathan Haidt. He released a book called The Anxious Generation, which looks at how teenagers, and there's a lot of kind of research around this, through kind of addiction to social media, they found that it's that kind of marriage of smartphones and social media that's actually causing anxiety, not a contributing factor, but actually causing it. So that's been a kind of a significant piece of work done in the US, and sort of found that across Europe, multiple countries have introduced either total bans or partial bans. Italy, Spain, France, Holland, Hungary, Albania, Ireland, so the list goes on. So there is really a global movement. In Australia, just at the end of last calendar year, also introduced a ban on social media for under 16-year-olds. So that's currently got to go through kind of the upper house and become law. But I think there is a real drive to, I think even here in the UK, I think it was last April or May, MPs, I think following the Ofcom research, called for a total ban on phones for under 16-year-olds, and for the next government to kind of pick that up. So there is a real growing momentum around this.
Yeah. Do you think that's something that would potentially happen here then in that next?
I think it's definitely something that's going to be debated here.
Yeah. No, I just echo that, in terms of, we know the negative impact it's having on mental health, and also in terms of the kind of academic piece. There's research to show that schools that have done bans of smartphones have seen around a 6% increase in attainment and tests. So again, there is that, it's a whole picture here. It's about the well-being of a child and how that can then support their performance, because that will then make them happy as well.
And just to wrap it up, one other thing I wanted to ask about is, what are some of the key things that parents need to know? Because obviously there's a lot of information out there. It's a bit of an overwhelming amount, really. What are some key things you would want parents to know about this?
I think with parents, it's just being really curious with your child and having an open dialogue with them. Like I said, with banning anything, you kind of almost shut down conversation. So it's really important that you talk about the why. So, this is, some of the negatives, some of the positives, and also kind of discussing that together, what should or shouldn't we have. So just things like that, having really practical rules, so no smartphones at the dinner table, or no smartphones at bed, and just get an old school alarm clock, have charging stations downstairs. They're sort of practical things, and then also just being aware of the filtering, monitoring options and the parental controls that you do have on social media tools.
Yeah, and on our own school, we've kind of appealed to parents to kind of take that collective action, like Joe mentioned, the smartphone-free movement.
Yeah.
And we've actually asked parents not to buy smartphones in the future. Again, we're not in the business of villainising technology. We're actually the opposite, but it's about finding the right devices and trying to get children away from the addictive social media.
Absolutely. All right, well, thank you both so much. That was brilliant.
Cool.
Thank you.